Some consoles are popular and beloved. And then there are these.
Look into the world of Sega Saturn.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for another top 10 worst video game consoles.
Any questions? Then play Ian! How about compatibility?
For this list, we'll be taking a look back at consoles that showed up, attempted to sell us on their respective qualities, and ultimately failed to succeed for a number of reasons. Whether it was the cost, the design, or the marketing, these systems didn't quite stick the landing.
Alright!
We're leaving pirated and cloned consoles off this list as a general rule, so products like the Intech Interact won't be mentioned further.
Now you may return to the world as you know it.
If there's a terrible console you thought should be on this list, be sure to check out our first clip of the top 10 worst video game consoles.
What is going on up there?
Number 10, Ouya. Talk about missing the mark when it came to expectations.
Anybody that wanted to develop a game for television, we allow them the ability to do this.
Funded through an immensely successful Kickstarter campaign, this MicroConsole, running its own version of the Android operating system, was meant to be a low-cost alternative to the other 8th generation consoles.
You're the signal to the world that this is wanted.
Sadly, the console's promise of accessible developers' tools and free-to-play launch titles couldn't make up for a poorly constructed controller, spotty internet connectivity, and a general lack of compelling games, especially when you consider the strong indie titles readily available elsewhere. We're not surprised that manufacturer Ouya Incorporated is trying to sell at this point.
We wanted to make a great product.
Number 9, Sega Saturn.
Delivering crystal clear digital video and rich, creamy 3D graphics.
Such follies and misjudgment the gaming world sees all too often.
Please, don't disappoint him.
Back in 1995, the idea of a console sporting the latest in 3D video processing technology was a dream come true, and that was the promise of the Saturn, Sega's 4th home console. It was rushed to market to get a head start on the upcoming PlayStation and was found to be too difficult to develop for. As a result, Sega had a deficit of third-party games and a console infamous for being more complex than it needed to be. Plus, a Sega console with no Sonic? Very unfortunate.
Keep it down a little.
Number 8, Hyperscan.
Which looks like something that Batman would have thrown out of the Batcave because it was obsolete.
Interesting ideas do not instantly equate success. Execution is the key.
I could beat you with my good looks alone.
That's the lesson Mattel had to learn the hard way with the release of the Hyperscan. The console's gimmick was that the games were compatible with the special RFID-enabled cards that would unlock in-game content and act as a means of saving data.
Should have kept your guard up.
Unfortunately, the console, games, and cards were derided for their universally poor quality, and lackluster sales ensured the system would be discontinued by 2007.
Pardon me, but I fear you may feel quite a bit of pain when we are through, my good fellow.
It probably didn't help that Mattel only released 5 games for the Hyperscan, 3 of which were Marvel titles.
Next time, I won't be so gentle.
Number 7, Coleco Telstar Arcade. Of all the variants of the Telstar console, this one is possibly the most bizarre. Released in 1977 as part of Coleco's Telstar line, this contraption features 3 different peripherals: a light gun for shooting games, a steering wheel for racing, and a paddle for Pong.
Look at this mess. A steering wheel? A gun? What madman came up with this?
The Telstar Arcade had a pack-in game and several other cartridges were released, but ultimately it, and other Telstar consoles, would be discontinued in 1978 amid the decline of Pong machines.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco.
Number 6, RCA Studio 2. It's hard to break into the game industry, especially when time is against you. But the electronics company RCA made a bold effort with the Studio 2, a system sporting twin keypads built into the console and 5 packed-in games.
What it meant was that the Pong systems were on their way out and that people wanted interchangeable cartridges.
The problem was, the Studio 2's technology was obsolete before it hit shelves. It had black and white graphics while its competitors had color, and only used buttons when other systems relied on joysticks. By the time the far superior Atari 2600 hit store shelves, the writing was on the wall. Number 5, GameComm.
I have a surprise for all the slackers, but nothing better to do than play games and surf the net all day. GameComm!
Some things just can't catch a break. In 1997, Tiger Electronics began pitching a handheld system aimed at hip and happening young adults.
GameComm, the ultimate portable gaming system.
The idea being the premise of those adult-skewing games would draw in a crowd. The resulting GameComm even sounds promising. A handheld that had PDA functionality, the ability to connect to the internet, and a touchscreen interface well before the Nintendo DS. Yet, the system flopped for various reasons. It didn't catch on with the media, it lacked quality games, and had a really poor screen with severe ghosting issues.
The boxes look nice, even if the games don't.
As you might expect, it did not sell well.
GameComm, active.
Number 4. Action Max.
Target drone dead ahead. He's all yours.
We feel like this failure should have been predictable.
Yeah.
The VHS-based system by the toy company Worlds of Wonder required gamers to have a VCR, and came with a light gun, which ended up being integral to each of its 5 games.
Stay cool, trucker!
2 factors held the system back. Every game for the Action Max was a shooting game, and there was no way to win or lose any of the games. In the end, the Action Max quietly disappeared from the market, leaving little in the way of a lasting impact.
Complete radio silence and no mention outside naval intelligence. Do you copy?
Number 3. RDI Halcyon.
Nice to see you again, down there.
In the world of vaporware, this is the stuff of legends.
Designing Halcyon took him 6 years and cost $6 million.
Designed by RDI Video Systems, the company responsible for classic games like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, the Halcyon was pitched as a voice-activated system with AI as advanced as HAL 9000.
Do you want to play Sayers Quest?
Yes.
There was just one caveat. You had to pay $2,500 for the console.
Sorry, Hal.
You want me to unplug you so he
Yeah,
can't
sure.
hear
I think we've gotten that point across.
The obscene asking price, combined with investors skeptical of the concept, meant the console was doomed before it could launch.
The fantasy is yours.
If you're really dedicated, you can still find the few remaining prototypes in the hands of collectors.
It has the ability to understand up to a 200-word vocabulary.
Number 2. R-Zone.
Are you ready?
Remember those cheap Tiger LCD handheld games? Well, the company responsible for those pieces of crap thought they'd sell well as a handheld console. Didn't think they could get any worse, did ya?
It's the R-Zone Super Screen, the biggest tabletop cartridge game screen you've ever seen.
The R-Zone would begin as a visor-like accessory worn on the player's head, with more traditional handheld variants released later. All is well and good, except it had to compete with Nintendo's Game Boy and Sega's Game Gear, and was technically rushed to market to compete with the equally doomed Virtual Boy.
Here comes Wolf!
Mortal Kombat 3 lives!
Add to that a lack of expected features, like the ability to save game data or adjust volume levels, and you're left with a product that didn't last long in the market. And that's not even mentioning the fact that you had to close one eye to view the screen properly.
They're right in my face!
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few dishonorable mentions.
Us. Turbo Express Portable.
Just like Sonic the Hedgehog meets Candy Crush on crack. Love the music once again. Great sound work.
Number 1. Atari 5200. This is the big one, literally and figuratively.
But aren't they hard to find? They're everywhere. Everywhere?
As Atari's next console after the largely successful 2600, the 5200 Super System was touted as having more advanced graphics and a better joystick controller than its predecessor.
This is the worst video game controller that I've ever seen.
What buyers got instead was a console with a shoddily made controller that broke down real easy, a lineup of games that were mostly updated 2600 titles, and a really high asking price for the time.
Here's Pac-Man on ColecoVision. But here's Pac-Man for the Atari 5200 Super System.
Now you're talking.
On top of that, the timing of the console's release contributed to the video game crash of 1983, sealing its own fate in the process. Do you agree with our list? What game consoles left you fuming? For more tech-savvy top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Now, how far will laser discs and computer technology go? We have some thoughts from commentator Paul Schindler.